Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is the first episode of my video series on American political system. In this series, I talk about its major features, including its principles of separation of powers, checks and balances, and federalism. I also talk about its major political parties and its general elections. In order to make it more easily understandable, I briefly compare it with the political systems in Great Britain and Australia, all of which share the same cultural heritage. Another reason for comparing these three countries is that, although I'm currently living in the USA, I lived in Australia for quite a few years, and of course, I'm very familiar with Australian politics. In any case, please keep in mind that the focus of these videos is the American political system. If you are new to this channel, my name is Frank Zhu, and I'm a college professor teaching sociology, history, and philosophy. I'm also an award-winning landscape photographer. As there is so much to cover, this series will have 3 episodes. Today's video is the first. Please subscribe if you haven't so that you will not miss out the future videos. By the way, the content of this video series is largely based on 2 of my published books. One of them is Essentials of World History, and the other one is 222 Sociology Questions and Answers, both of which are available on Amazon. Most nations throughout the world were historically built upon common cultural heritage, such as common languages, common religions, or common racial and ethnic backgrounds. Take Britain and China, for example. Both nations have become what they are now through a long natural and gradual evolutionary development. However, America as a nation was, in a sense, arbitrarily created. It was founded on a few philosophical principles that are contained in the 2 most famous political documents: the Declaration of Independence, which was authored by Thomas Jefferson and passed by Congress on July 4, 1776, and the Constitution, which became effective in 1789. With these 2 documents, the so-called Founding Fathers created a nation like no other. Of course, they borrowed a lot from the Europeans. For example, Jefferson borrowed the idea of rights from John Locke, who was a famous English philosopher. The Founding Fathers even borrowed some vocabulary from the ancient Romans, such as the word Senate for one of the chambers in Congress, and the word Capitol for the place where the Congress is located. Even though the Founding Fathers did a remarkable job in creating a stable system, there have been lots of discussions about the advantages and disadvantages of the so-called American type of democracy, and there have been debates whether this type of democracy is still suitable for the modern society. I will mention those debates and criticism from time to time to remind you that the American system is not considered as the best by everyone all the time. I'd like to start with the national flag and the national anthem. The American national flag is also known as the Stars and Stripes. The 50 white stars on a blue field represent the 50 states, and the 13 red and white stripes represent the original 13 colonies which were declared independent from Britain in 1776. By the way, I will soon make a video series talking about American history. If you are interested, please subscribe. The American national anthem, which is called the Star-Spangled Banner, was written in 1814 and was adopted as the official anthem in 1931. What is interesting is that its melody is actually English, coming from an old English song. Speaking of English, the national flag of Britain is known as the Union Jack. It is so called because the flag combines the three crosses of the three countries which were united: England and Wales, Scotland and Ireland. The national flag of Australia is also known as the Australian Blue Ensign, which borrows a lot from the British national flag, which is not surprising because Australia used to be a colony of Britain after all. Now, let's talk about the American Constitution. Adopted in 1789, the American Constitution is the longest surviving written constitution in the world. As the Supreme Court, it sets up the political structure, defines the rights of individuals, and limits the power of government. Here in America, people feel proud of having the freedom of speech. But not everyone knows that it is one of the rights protected by the Constitution, more specifically by the so-called Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Another right, which is notorious for some people, protected by the Constitution, is the right to bear arms. There is no other country where it is easier to buy a gun than America. Considering the rampant gun violence in America, many people have been debating about the constitutional right to purchase and carry weapons. People have been increasingly asking, why is it a protected right? Even some politicians have been making efforts to get rid of guns, but so far, none has been successful because, ironically for some people, it is a constitutionally protected right. This is one of the reasons behind the argument that the Constitution, which was created hundreds of years ago, is no longer suitable for the modern society. Unlike America, Great Britain has no written constitution. By the way, Great Britain is also often called the United Kingdom or simply Britain. Nowadays, seldom do people use the term England to refer to the country as a whole because the people in Wales and Scotland find it offensive. Now, you may wonder why Britain doesn't have a written constitution. Well, usually, a constitution is created following a major historic turning point such as independence, revolution, defeating war, or complete collapse of the previous system of government. None of these has happened in Britain, which is why Britain has never felt the need to codify its constitution. Strictly speaking, it is not correct to say there is no written constitution because it is largely written but in different documents. Unlike Britain, Australia has a written constitution that was adopted in 1900. Although the document formally declared that Australia would be an independent country, it has remained very close to Britain and is a member of the Commonwealth, which is an association of countries that were once part of the British colonies. When it comes to political system, the three countries are similar in some aspects and different in others. The American type of system is called the presidential system, whereas the British model is called the parliamentary system, also known as the Westminster model. In Australia, it is a combination of the presidential system and the parliamentary system, although the Australian system is more similar to that of Britain. In spite of the differences, all of them are the same in that the government is divided into 3 branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Now, let's first look at the executive branch. As the name suggests, the job for this branch of government is to execute laws passed by the legislative branch. In America, the executive branch is represented by the president. The president is both the head of state and head of government. Now, you may ask, what is the difference? Well, the head of state represents the people of the nation, whereas the head of government is the person who is in charge of executing laws. In Britain, the Prime Minister is only the head of government. The King, who is now Charles III, is the head of state, although his power is only symbolic. King Charles III is also the head of state for Australia, represented by Governor-General, who is appointed by the King of Britain on the recommendation of the Australian Prime Minister. The American president is elected nationwide every 4 years in a presidential election. The last presidential election was in 2020. The next one, of course, will be in 2024. In Britain and Australia, the Prime Minister is only elected from his or her election district, which is called constituency, not nationwide. To put it another way, the Prime Minister is also a member of the House of Commons, or the House of Representatives in the case of Australia. The leader of the majority party or the leader of a coalition in Parliament automatically becomes the Prime Minister. In America, the President's cabinet is chosen by the President. By the way, the word cabinet here refers to a group of people who are usually the heads of different executive departments. In both America and Britain, they are called secretaries, whereas in Australia they are called ministers. The secretaries in America are not elected politicians. They are chosen by the president with confirmation by Senate, of course. Such practice is different from Britain or Australia. In Britain and Australia, the Prime Minister's cabinet must be selected from Parliament, which means they are also elected politicians. In America, secretaries are only supposed to be responsible to the president alone, whereas in Great Britain and Australia, all cabinet members must be responsible to both the Prime Minister and their own constituencies. If they are not elected, there is no way they can be chosen as a member of the cabinet. The critics of the American system argue that when the cabinet people are only responsible to one person, they will not listen to the public opinions. One term for the American president is 4 years, and he can stay in office for a maximum of 2 terms, 8 years. In American history, President Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected 4 times, but he died in office during the Second World War because of illness. After that, a law was made creating the 2-term maximum requirement. But in Britain, One term for Prime Minister is 5 years at maximum, and there is no limit to the amount of time a Prime Minister can serve in office as long as he or she has the support of the majority in the House of Commons. But an election must be held at least once in 5 years. In Australia, the Prime Minister is the head of the party or the coalition of parties with the support of the majority of the House of Representatives. The Prime Minister can call an election any time of his or her choosing as long as it is within the 5-year period. However, the Prime Minister needs to make a formal request to the King to dissolve Parliament, which is the official term for closing Parliament ahead of an election. In Australia, the election for the House of Representatives is held at least every 3 years. As long as the Prime Minister has the majority support, there is no limit to the term either. Well, that is all that I wanted to talk about in today's episode, which is one of the 3 of my video series on American political system. In the next episode, I will be talking about the American Congress and the Supreme Court. I will also be talking about how laws are made in Congress and how the principle of checks and balances works. I will be asking, does checks and balances prevent corruption, or does it actually hinder efficiency? Please subscribe so you will not miss the next episode. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.